Hello and welcome everybody. Tonight, Melanie Vritschan and I are broadcasting a new fundraiser and with new updates for ICATOR. That's the human rights charity that Melanie is running. And we've got some news about the upcoming scanning. And today is another fundraising push to get the money together to actually be able to, fund all the many projects that we had to get the human body chip scanned in people. I would like to pass the microphone straight to Melanie so that she can give you the newest updates. Hi, Melanie.
Yes, hi, Katherine, and good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's nice to be here again. We're again sorry that this show was announced in German. It was a little misunderstanding between Katherine and I, but German speakers, please be reassured, you will also get your German show this weekend. Yes, we're here today to give an update about all very many projects we're running and the successes we have had so far, and we will have, I'm very sure, in future. The calibration scanning, and Katherine can say later in a few words what this is now planned. We have sufficient funds for this. We will have this month. I will not say exactly what date, but it is planned this month, and it will now go ahead. So thank you very much to the donors that have generously donated so that we could continue on the scientific project. I would especially like to thank Anne M, who was really one of our main donors to make this possible. So just to explain quickly again, we are now doing this calibration scanning. That is Katherine and I working several hours concentrated with the university's professors to set up a scanning protocol towards we will then scan all of our members. So it will be that protocol that we will always use. Katherine can later say a few words as well. So I would like to thank you, our donors, again, and this will happen now in the next over the next few days. Once we have set up this scanning protocol and we have received the results, and I'm pretty confident that they will be positive, we will, as I have announced various times now, we will proceed to inviting the ICATOR members for their scannings, for their body scan, in a controlled environment, as we have explained various times. But this is not for free, so we need a budget for this, just like we needed a budget now to be able to do calibration scanning. We also need a budget to later scan the members. And the calibration scanning, we have now enough to be able to scan to do this for like a half a day. Ideally, Katherine and I both agree that a day would be better, because then we're really sure that we'll obtain positive results and that we're not in a hurry and we're not pressurized, that we have sufficient time to work this out. So it would be great if people could donate one more time over the next days, so we have more time to the with professors to really work this out thoroughly, and then hopefully get the results we need and then proceed to the invitations of the members pretty quickly. I hope that will happen till October, November. I mean, this fall at least it should happen. So this is one important announcement that I had. I have personally one more message. I've just been informed that one of the NSA whistleblowers were working with the former NSA technical director, Bill Binney, who we had the honor and the pleasure to have as our speakers, our keynote speaker at the 2014 Covered Harassment Conference here in Brussels. I've just heard that his wife recently died from cancer, and that he had been the main caretaker of her for the time she was sick. So I would, on behalf of ICATOR, would like to address our sincere condolences to her death, and wish Bill a lot of strength and courage over the next time. That is most probably a difficult time for him now, and I would like also to thank him again for his outstanding commitment to help victims of non-consensual implantation of this kind of directed energy electromagnetic terrorism, what we can say, to help us and to support us and be a strong voice in support of all the victims around the world. So this were basically my main two messages today. And maybe, Katherine, could you explain a little bit more what we're doing in this calibration scanning? Because I think some people still need a few more details about this.
Absolutely, gladly. So the entire purpose is, as most people know, we started this collaboration with the Belgian university last year, and we had two scanning events. And in both times, we managed to measure chips. However, what we discovered is that we still need to refine the measurement protocol. And that's because the Faraday room that and the equipment, the measuring equipment that the professor in Belgium has is geared towards measuring, electromagnetic devices, so large-scale devices. It is not really, assembled with the intention of measuring human body chips. So, and also it has to be said that the professor's never ever seen or come across anything like this. So we have to refine the way that we are honing in on these chips. My personal goal is to find not just the existence of these radio frequency emissions, but to actually pin them down, which frequencies we're talking about exactly. Because as soon as you have that, you can look up who licensed the frequency and who your likely perpetrators are, who are data mining your body and who have human trafficked you. And also the other step is that I would like to really hone in on the location of the chips. So many people know that Melinda Kidder worked in the field for a very long time, and her measurement assessments always resulted in an actual map with precise locations of the chips. And this is what I really would like to aim for as well. So the idea is that victims would be scanned in, as quickly as possible, but certainly within, half an hour or so, or an hour, and have a full body scan. And ideally, this is what we're aiming for, come out with, an actual expert testimony of, yes, do they have radio frequency emitting chips or no? Have they been measured or have they not been measured? It should be said that even if they haven't been measured, I think there's a way for the intel agencies to switch off the chips, but so far they haven't actually done it. So far we always managed to catch some. So with this caveat, you can determine, do people have chips or not? As soon as you measure radio frequency emissions, it's already essentially a home run in court, because the human body does not emit in the megahertz range, which is, the band of all sorts of, for example, mobile phone communications, 800 to 900 megahertz and so on. But so that's one thing, but then I also want them to be able to say, okay, these are the frequencies that have been measured precisely, then to be able to look up the who licensed the frequencies using the published frequency tables. And then the final step would be to really hone in on which area of their body does have a chip. And I'm not sure what resolution we will achieve there, but, certainly should be able to say, okay, how many different radio frequency emissions are coming, for example, from the head region as opposed to the chest or the leg region. That already would be a start. And then I should also say that I'm also researching, and I've been trying to get expertise about different methods of how to really hone in on where the chips are located. And this is an ongoing project. I'm still trying to find the best measuring method for that. But ideally, I would like to pinpoint that within, a millimeter or so that you can really, get a doctor to find that and also take it out in surgery. And the surgery has to be absolutely minimally invasive, and you should be able to locate the chip very accurately. And this kind of very accurate location is then an add-on. I'm not sure if with the equipment we'll be able to pin it down to a millimeter. I doubt it, because the equipment I've seen at the university is really geared towards just big equipment, not, fine-tuning. However, maybe we can find a device, or maybe the professor can really find something, once we have the big equipment honed, the entire measuring procedure with the big equipment, determining the frequencies, yes, no, and the frequency numbers. After that, maybe we can even hone in on that, but perhaps we need alternative measuring methods. So this is what I'm looking into right now. But anyway, what all the victims should come out with is a report with frequency measurements that is valid in court. So as soon as there are radio frequency emissions in the megahertz range that can be shown to have come from your body, it already implies you have been criminally implanted with military technology. And that report, coming from that professor, from that university, should be recognized everywhere in the world, because this is one of the leading faculties in the field. So this is what we're working for. Now the scanning, the first scanning that will happen will be Melanie and I working on the measurement protocol, and then what comes in the autumn is really opening it up to all the members of ICATOR and finally producing these expert reports for individual victims. And as Melanie said, hopefully that should be happening later at the, later in the autumn, maybe at the end of autumn or early winter. That's what we are aiming for.
Absolutely, yeah. And just to add, as Katherine said, the human body does normally not emit radio frequency emissions, and certainly not in these kind of ranges. And that's why we do it in a Faraday cage, in a controlled environment, in a protected environment, so that the reports that the victims are later getting are really valid in court, so that you can say this is actually 100% scientific proof that I have been implanted non-consensually and against my will. I would also like to mention on the subject, there has been recently a show that was called In Search Of, that was came out on History Channel, and later I might put the link here so that people can see that where the subject was these non-consensual implantation. There was the case of James Walbert shown, who was an American victim, an inventor out of Kansas, and who was non-consensually implanted, which means the perpetrators entered his house at night, drugged him, and implanted him without his consent. And he was able to prove that, and he was the first person to win actually a court case in the US, and all this was shown in this broadcast, where we can later post a link. So this actually really shows that this was on mainstream TV, that this is not a conspiracy theory, that these crimes are very real, and it's a new form of terrorism, actually, a violent aggression of a peaceful population that is mainly composed of women and children, which we always find at our scannings, that the percentage of women or single moms is sufficiently higher, at least at the events that we're organizing. So I think that's a very important point. And I think it was a good program to actually show the reality, and that the secret services like the CIA and like so many others have actually experimented non-consensually with these implant weapons on the population for decades now. And it is now also coming out also concerning the microwave weapons attacks of the American diplomats that were stationed in Cuba and in China. So that has now come out that this were definitely microwave weapons attacks they were subjected to. So after a long years of secrecy or decades of secrecy, now it seems that this is really coming out in the open, and it will be more and more difficult for unwitting or corrupt psychiatrists to claim that these are paranoid delusions. And as you know, I'm dealing with a court case right now, which had to do with my psychiatric commitment that happened last October at the birth of my child. So where Katherine was a witness. So I think that's very positive. It's a very positive evolution, and more and more broadcasts are now coming out also in mainstream media. Also, I think there was a long article in the New York Times about all this non-consensual experimentation going on. Yeah.
That's an excellent summary. And also on the topic of the fraudulent psychiatrization, so that the fraudulent commitment to psychiatry of many victims. I should also say for the German viewers, or for those who speak German, I've made contact with a lawyer called Edmund Schönberger here in Switzerland, who has been fighting fraudulent psychiatry for 40 years. And he has, I think, several hundred cases that he's taken to court, or if not, he's aware of many more. And I managed to win him for an argument. So I had a long chat to him, and I'm hoping that I'll be able to post an interview with him soon. And he also agreed to maybe also do an interview in English. So hopefully we can have the German interview first and then the English one. And then you would have an actual recorded testimony of somebody, of a lawyer who's an expert in this sort of fraudulent practice here in Switzerland. And he's taken many cases to the European Court of Human Rights as well. And he has also been targeted. I don't think with directed energy weapons, or at least he's not aware of it, but he has been targeted with malicious prosecution here in Switzerland and many other ways. So they tried to revoke his license as a lawyer, as they do. So we are really dealing with a criminal network here that is entirely, has now spread through the courts and through the entire legal system and the administration. And as soon as anybody is trying to fight this fraudulent activity, they get all sorts of administrative terrorism and takedown operations launched against them. And this is what happened to him as well. But he stood his ground and he fought them like a ferret for 40 years. And he has been hugely successful because he personally won against the Swiss state twice. And I hope that he will tell us a bit more about it. The other thing I would like to announce, but that's only in German now, that I'm trying to win Siegfried Thomas for a public interview, and that would also be for the German victims an actual testimony in German that they can use. And again, there have been attempts to fraudulently confine to psychiatry him and his wife. And again, that plays into the same story. But as Melanie said, as soon as we have
always the method is used to cover these crimes up. I know that in this the link that I just put, in the show of In Search Of, where they spoke about the non-consensual implantation, and where James Walbert was interviewed, he also said that when you even mentioned implant, then you would immediately be put into psychiatry and diagnosed with paranoid delusions, and that seems to be what they always try. And unfortunately still succeed in too many cases. I have been in contact today with a Dutch victim who went through the same story. He was actually, after having an argument with his parents, his father, at their home, he decided to go home, and he took his bike, and apparently the father called the police and said, well, he's again talking about these technologies, all this nonsense. And the police stopped him on his bike, and they said that he was supposed to come with them to psychiatry, and it was presented as a voluntary enrollment. And he said, okay, I stay one night, and but I'm not a danger to myself or to others. And then, as it is often the case, this is why you should never accept any voluntary commitments, is that he wanted to leave the next day. And then the psychiatrist told, no, you stay here. And they drugged him forcibly with injections, and all the story that we know also from the victim, Frederic Laroche. I would like to stress, by the way, that with our scanning, the members that have current court cases that will be invited to the scanning with priority. So he then was not able to leave psychiatry anymore, and he was forcibly injected and drugged, and all this kind of things that they did to me as well at the birth of my child. And then Peter Mooring from the our Dutch sister organization, he assisted him, and he was finally released, and he won the trial. against this fraudulent psychiatry, and also against the forced injection and all the forced medication that they had done to him. So, but this is another example, and it was interesting I asked him to send his court order to me, and I read it through now. It's in Dutch, but I could more or less understand, and it was really interesting to see the parallels and how this seems to be like an operation, a method that goes in an operation as soon as you mention implants or directed energy weapons. It is always the same kind of modus operandi that seems to be applied. So that was very interesting, and I will now see in how far I can use this for my own court case against hospital harassment. So
excellent. No, this is really good to hear. I've got a few questions. So number one is when he won his case, has he applied for compensation? Because it's people should also be aware that forced medication has already been termed torture by the UN Special Rapporteur for Torture, and that was Juan Mendes. And I think he did that in the year 2014 or 15. But anyway, so once you have an actual UN Special Rapporteur expressing that this qualifies as torture, that opinion has to be taken into account, and that is, you know, first of all a crime, but also a war crime. So under any circumstance, you are entitled towards compensation for crime having been committed against you. And it also follows that the psychiatrist who force injected somebody is a criminal. There has been actually the crime of torture being committed. And I think what should happen next, so that there has to be incentivization with these criminals, the name of the psychiatrist who did that, the entire chain of command who let that happen, has to be exposed and has to be made public as actually active criminals in operation. I think their license has to be revoked because they have committed torture willfully. And also their license should be revoked because it is a pseudoscientific practice. It is not medicine. It is entirely pseudoscientific, and it is criminal. And it has been known to be criminal already since the Nazi war crimes. So I think what should be done is that if this person permits, the judgment should be made public, but also the names of all the doctors involved and also all the police officers involved has to be made public, because the police officers have already also committed a crime by doing that. You know, I presume there was no court order, and they have effectively robbed somebody of their liberty and subjected this person to torture for no reason whatsoever.
Certainly false imprisonment, and it is, you know, forced injection of medication, forced medication. So all these are crimes and are recognized as torture. I was thinking the same thing when I heard of his story. I knew it happened in 2015. And I think the report came out, the UN report came out in 2015, if I'm not mistaken. I immediately thought about this. What I have, I guess, done now today, just he sent me this report and say, well, it is court order, and said, well, it's all in Dutch. I said, never mind, I understand it, send it to me. But my next question was, of course, then will be to him. I said I would read it and then come back to him with questions. Of course, you know, did you ask for compensation? You know, also monetary compensation, not only that they let you go, or but of course you should be compensated for this false imprisonment and this actually forced drugging. So I will ask this question. What concerns me, I certainly intend to claim damages and ask also for monetary compensation for the forced medication. Yeah, that's for sure. I think you're muted, Katherine.
Yeah, I think I'm trying to mute myself so background noise doesn't appear, and then I don't unmute myself fast enough. Yes, absolutely. And I think so what, as you pointed out just a moment ago, Melanie, what they are running, it is actually a standard operating procedure, but it's actually what it is. It's a criminal game plan. So the police officers are not stupid. They know they are committing crimes. They have got their experience. They know that they are subjecting healthy people to torture, but it seems to have spread among the police officers and also the judiciary that this is somehow okay. It is absolutely not okay. And another thing that I really would like to put across to all the victims, do not for a second think that just because this thing happened to you, you have to shut up. If it's torture, It is a crime against humanity. Willful, premeditated torture run by an institution is a crime against humanity. And this means you don't have a limitation period. This means even if it happened 10 or 20 years ago, you can still claw, to the into the limelight who did that to you, and you can still get compensation. Because what we are waking up to now, and this is something that Edmund Schönberger explained extremely well to me. He said that these were criminal plans put into place by the government, or as I call it, the organized crime cartel that has deep captured government. And it was intentionally run as a sort of continuation of the Nazi internment camps. And he also explained that the people who set up, very much like in the US, by the way, the people who set up psychiatry and the psychiatric institutions in Switzerland, the two leading psychiatrists who did that in the early 20th century, were actually both eugenicists. They were Nazis. So they set up Nazi internment camps, and the entire philosophy and the entire quark science that went with it was just a cover-up. And this has continued to today, this practice, but it is a crime. And always remember that with doctors, they have a special extra burden and liability if they are mistreating patients. And this is absolutely not okay. I mean, this sort of pseudoscience would be bad enough for a scientist or a physicist, but in the case of a doctor, he can and he should have his license revoked. And I think every victim who has experienced that should go back, look up the name of the doctors who were involved, and set it as their personal goal to have the licenses revoked, to remove those criminal doctors from the system. Ignorance is no excuse, not before the law, and certainly not in the pseudoscience of psychiatry. So, both with police officers and with psychiatrists, each one of us has to set us the goal to really remove them so that they are never allowed to practice ever again. If they've wrecked one person's life, then they have to have their license revoked. And I personally think they should also serve jail time. But another thing that Edmund Schönberger has revealed to me, he drew my attention to a study that points out that anybody, also statistically speaking, anybody who has been put through forced psychiatry and has been forced to take the drugs, on average gets their life expectancy reduced by 30%, by a third. So, in other words, the people who are put through forced psychiatry and forced drugging have an extremely high likelihood to die. And that again underlies this entire, realization that actually psychiatry and forced psychiatry, it is an internment camp and actually set up to be an extermination camp. And that's because mental health issues do not necessarily correlate with physical frailty. This means that the reduction in life expectancy is entirely due to whatever is done to you in forced psychiatry, So this is another thing to keep in mind. And I would like to get also the statistics and have Edmund Schönberger discuss the statistics that he referred to in legal cases as a lawyer. So this is something that you can put into your court cases. And we should also translate this into English. I'm not sure if the references are available in English, but we should translate them because they are scientific studies that have been peer-reviewed. So that's something extremely...
Yeah, that's really very interesting. I also would like to thank everybody that is still asking me what is going on with the custody of my baby. I have received my baby back. I cannot comment very long on this. I can only say that unfortunately the use procedure is still running. So I was released out of psychiatry after 5 days, as you all know by now, because I won the trial. So they had to let me go, and Katherine attended this trial. But the use procedure unfortunately is still running, so I cannot unfortunately comment on that. I can only say that I'll thank you all for your concerns and for your many well wishes and inquiries, and that is still ongoing. I also know that the journalist Ramola G has recently told me that she receives thousands of requests from all over the world about this affair, and so I I thank you all very much for this interest, and I will certainly keep you posted when this has the, the positive outcome we're all expecting, and it should have. So, but thank you very much for all the concerns. This was one thing. Maybe Katherine, for people that would like to support us and would like to support our scanning project, could you show again how they can do that? The GoFundMe page on the ICATOR website, and also the IBAN number for at least the people that are in the Eurozone.
Absolutely.
And for the donations we have received,
Absolutely.
which have brought us so far already.
Yeah. Let me just share my screen and draw people's attention to it. I should say that the details are also in the description below the video on YouTube or wherever you might be watching this. But you can also verify the details if you go to ICATOR, so ICATOR.be, and you can see the name here, .be for Belgium. And you can go, first of all, to join us. If you are within the Eurozone, I recommend you look at the page Join Us, because at the bottom you'll find the bank details. And the direct bank transfer is the cheapest. And with the direct bank transfer within the European Union, and certainly within the Eurozone, 100% of the funds should be arriving at ICATOR. And then if you are elsewhere, for example, if you are in the US, please go to the GoFundMe site. You can also do a direct bank transfer, but you might incur some fees. But if you go to GoFundMe here, you can press on Donate Now, which takes you through to the GoFundMe page, and then in English it should say Donate Now here, and then you can click here and also pay by card or whatever payment method you would like to use.
Yeah,
and I've just seen that here.
I mean, you see our last donor here was Edward Gerzinsk. I would like to thank him for his donation that has that we have received today, in fact. So thank you very much, Edward. The thing is that he, for example, made a donation of 200 euros, and with everything that GoFundMe takes off, we got 181 euros out of that.
Excellent.
So it is really, only for people that are not in the Eurozone, because otherwise, unfortunately, GoFundMe takes a certain percentage commission that we then lose. But anyway, we are still very grateful that for the people that do donate and also use the GoFundMe page. So the money arrives. That's for sure. It's just that GoFundMe takes this unfortunate commission.
Well, talking about the commission, I thought the commission of GoFundMe was 5%.
I thought so too, and I was quite surprised that I saw 181 euros arrive on our account today when he
which sounds like 100. Yeah, I mean, it sounds like 10% was taken.
Yeah, so that's what I thought. I was like, I thought it was only 5%, but yeah, maybe they've recently increased it. I don't know. I think it's a bit dodgy, this kind of practice,
Oh, absolutely. I mean,
I understand that they also need to make a living, but
yeah,
I think that's pretty exaggerated.
Absolutely. And also, thanks to the well-wishers, and here already you can also hear what hardship the other people are going through. I think we should also thank, here, for example, the anonymous donor. Yes. And Tim Ashby here as well. Thank you very, very much. And also earlier, the donations we received a while back, John Hunt and others.
Yeah, and I say thank you very much to Anne for her big donations, but I also said that we have a couple of smaller donors we would also like to thank cordially, of course. Yeah.
Absolutely, because the truth is that most victims are extremely cash strapped, and we really appreciate that. And the truth is that even if you just donate a small sum, if everybody donates a small sum, then we can achieve a lot. And I always think, for example, when videos get views above 1,000, if everybody would just donate $1, then we would be done with one video. And it really is
correct,
if you just donate a small amount, but just keep donating. And I always say, think about it that I mean, certainly in Europe a coffee costs you €2.50, so can you donate €2 maybe? And if you just do a direct bank transfer, never think that we will think this is not a sum high enough, but also know that what you're doing is that you are investing in the fight against crimes against humanity. And I always say that when you're faced with a battle, there's no point fighting the battle elsewhere. You have to be at the battle lines. And the battle lines are exactly what Melanie is doing right now with her court cases, with organizing the scanning for victims. And, you know, this is what you really need to support, because, you know, there's no, and also I should say that there has been, you know, an interview with Seven from the UK, Charles Seven, and you can find that on Ramola's channel. And she makes the point that by now it should have become obvious to everybody that no one is going to help us. None of the people, none of the officials who actually are paid to solve these problems, like the police officers, like the intelligence agents tasked with fighting terrorism, they are actually creating terrorism. They are the ones creating terrorism, and the state does not help us. We are faced with a torture and extermination program that affects men, women, and children, especially hard. And none of the officials are helping us. In fact, the officials are even paying neighbors to exterminate those people who are fighting this, like Melanie and myself. And, you know, I again, at this point, I would like to appeal to my neighbors in this Nazi commune of Unterengstringen near Zurich, who have been shooting me to absolutely, you know, bits every single night. And as I'm sitting here, if you're listening carefully, there have been shots against the metal side of the shed here, coming from the two neighbors to the east and the west, you know, must be, because no other way can you shoot the north side of my shed. And, you know, I must say that this sort of behavior is just, it is a Nazi practice, and these people are criminals. But I would like you to know, I mean, you know, I would like you to understand just what pain Melanie goes through when she is fighting for this, you know, because we always get retaliated against. And, you know, what we're really asking is that you express your support with, you know, money or elsewhere, by just retweeting or spreading the video and actively appealing to your friends and relatives, and say to them as a personal recommendation, take this seriously and do donate, because this is the battle we have to fight now. We are so far beyond, you know, this bullshit that we get from the police and the state officials and the psychiatrists, that chips don't exist. This is nonsense. Entire court cases have been won. Multi-million, you know, pounds and dollars court cases have been won.
This is really correct, Katherine. It's very important that you mentioned this, because I was thinking regarding the help. In fact, really, there is no help. You know, there is no help for the victims. And all they get if they complain about this crime at the police is probably, you know, a false psychiatric disorder diagnosis, and are carted off to psychiatry, as they have tried it with me and so many victims before. Fortunately for me, that did not succeed. But and also in the video that I've just placed there on the history channel show, James Walbert talks about how did he actually prove his case. And he hired 2 private investigators, and one of the private investigators he hired was the same person that also scanned our European ICATOR group. So I'm really trying to prove this scientifically and give the members the scientific evidence they need for the court case, so that so to avoid that they are getting these false psychiatric diagnoses, and then be basically dragged to death, or until the end of their lives, and spend their lives miserably in psychiatric treatment or in an asylum. So it is really a fight. It is indeed, the repercussions on us are extremely violent. Just to give you an example, Katherine, I wanted to do this video actually this Monday, and I had to tell her I'm so attacked I cannot do this tonight. So we did it tonight. And but yeah, this is really important. But once we'll have the scientific evidence we need, then they will not be able, or it will not be so easy to count this anymore, and give the victims these false psychiatric diagnosis and medicate them forcibly. But of course, it has come indeed at great cost to ourselves, to our lives, to our health, and also to our family situations. Anything is done to stop us from doing these investigations and going to court for the victims. This is indeed true. But I'm pretty confident that with your support, and hopefully a few more people will donate tonight, and we will be able to prove this scientifically and go to court and get all the victims the proof and the help they need. And also regarding the officials, like police officers and judges and some of the lawyers, what Katherine says, indeed, well, some of them are just, they really don't know, but a lot of them do know and do not do anything to help the victims. So that is indeed true. And we're dealing with corruption, and that's also something we're both looking at, systemic corruption in our systems, and we'll try to expose this and reveal this whenever we come across such cases. But we also must say that we have some good police officers. For example, in my own case, and I think you can confirm that, Katherine, what happened in the hospital at the birth of my baby when they what I would say unlawfully committed me to psychiatry. There was a police officer called on the scene, and he actually looked at my medical reports, and he was obviously not really in agreement of what happened there. And I have also one example here at the local police, is a police woman. She takes this quite seriously, and she has supported me. And there were recent burglaries, also illegal interest now into my neighbors' homes. And she has also taken all this down and said, well, you know, I'm not too surprised, because this seems to be happening quite often in this building. And she knows that I had problems with illegal entries into my homes and ransacking of my property, all this psychological warfare that is also deployed against the victims, and which is unfortunately quite easily deniable. But in my case, they were not lucky. The perpetrators were not lucky, because there were actually neighbors that were witnessing the break-ins and also discussed with the perpetrators. Seeing here some unknown men that came out of my apartment. So it does not always work to cover this up and cover this up by so-called paranoid delusions. But so I would like to thank the honest police officers, the ones that do want their job right and want to do the right thing. And I just wish there would be more of them. But I'm confident that as these crimes are getting more and more out in the public domain and more and more exposed and just undeniable, that we will hopefully see also a change of heart within the police, and also get more and more police officers to actually help the victims and support them and do their job, what they should do and what they actually paid for by the public, I may add. Yeah.
Absolutely. And you know, what we are dealing with is dereliction of duty and also malicious discrimination, because we have one set of victims of crime, horrific mutilation and crimes against humanity and torture, and they get completely ignored by the police. On the topic, I've got one question, but on the topic of break-ins, I would like to say that I suffered you know, the intelligence agencies here in Switzerland come in as soon as I leave the home. And the newest little antic that they did is they dug out a newspaper that I had collected on the 28th of April, 2016, because it had a particular article about Nazis in Chile, on the Colonia Dignidad, but they have broken into my flat, and ironically they placed on the floor this newspaper, and it says Beihilfe zur Folter, so it means aiding and abetting torture, and they have placed this in my path. Well, you know, again, this is what's called gaslighting. So the intelligence agencies come in and they rearrange stuff, and they place things that don't belong to you, or take your stuff and bring it back, and all these sort of stupid games. In this particular case, I am very pleased that they brought it up and reminded me of this, because one of them is the actual title. I would like to translate this for all the English viewers today. It actually says, let me read it in German. So it says aiding and abetting torture, and it says the exterior minister, or the foreign minister Steinmeier, names the responsible German diplomats who were, you know, also aiding and abetting the crimes in the Colonia Dignidad in Chile. And the files are being opened. Now, this was in 2016. And the reason why I would like to mention this, and I would like to mention the involvement of German diplomats, is because Dr. Otto Lampe, the German ambassador to Switzerland, knows about my case, and he refused. He refused to assist, you know, as did two of his staff. And one woman, I've actually got a recorded phone call by her. She even Nazi style makes fun of me. So I'm just very pleased to remind the German embassy here in Switzerland that dereliction of duty towards a German citizen counts as a crime. And, you know, we are now after them. It's again, Colonia Dignidad 2.0. But I would like to say this for all the people who are foreigners living in other countries experiencing torture. Please do contact your embassy. They might not actually help you like they haven't helped me, but at least you can incriminate the bastards. At least you can prove that they have committed dereliction of duty, and at least you can then in court have, hopefully, as you know, a Nazi ambassador's career destroyed forever, have him named and shamed forever. This should be your goal, because they also are in charge of you if you are being tortured abroad. If they commit dereliction of duty, they have no business being an ambassador. This is basically the fact of the matter. So I'm actually very, very grateful to the Swiss NDB who reminded me of the German Nazis, but I also would like to emphasize that the Swiss have their own share of Nazis, just to be fair to the Swiss. But anyway, this is I have one question, Melanie. Are we allowed to post the link to the History Channel documentary?
Absolutely. This is was on TV. This is a public show, so absolutely we can publish this.
Are we allowed to? Because I think it might also be proprietary, film. So
yes, but I can send you another link where it's actually really by History Channel, and all the shows are published.
Oh,
so
if you could send me that, I only have.
It was recorded by a victim who sent it to me, but I will send you the official link, and then we can post it.
Oh, sorry.
But it's it's a good question, and especially as I'll send the link later. Passed my my law exam, and that was one of the tests that I the test questions. You are true. You're right. There could be a question of copyright. So I will send you the official link that we then can post. And I will also send you the link to my my law exam that I passed and won. So I'm very pleased.
Excellent. One question: the History Channel. Is it possible to view the entire episode on the History Channel page? Yes. Excellent, yes. Excellent. I'm actually very pleased. If you could possibly look that up, because then I can post it in the live chat, maybe during the show. And in any case, at the end of the show, you will find it in the description below. Also, if you're on YouTube right now and you just click more to expand the description, in the listing there should already be, if I'm not mistaken, a link to the case of James Walbert. You should be able to have a look at it right now and record it for your.
And let me see. The thing is that the official one, somebody sent it to me via Facebook, so I need to open my Facebook page first.
Okay, sorry.
To be able to get that, so that could take some time. I'm sorry, Catherine. I think maybe whilst I'm doing this, could you still show them the foreign body that was removed from my throat, so that we can even show people more how real this actually is? Because I think it's important to show people. I mean, I'm sure we do not only have victims as our viewers. We have people that have never heard about this problem, and might actually be interested in getting concrete examples of these crimes. I think we showed it in one of the Techno Crime Fighters Forum episode.
Exactly. So I can show it right now. If you look up the link in the meantime, if I share my screen, it's actually in the description below the video today. So everybody who's watching now, this is what the YouTube page should appear to you now. If you click down here on Show More, you will see a list of links appearing. And the very first one here, I mean, here you find the implants in the case of James Walbert. I also would like to draw your attention to this link, which is Frederic Laroche here. And on the Frederic Laroche case, by the way, I've posted more details about the case, and also the shape of the car where the lady jumped on. If you follow the case, you know what I'm talking about. And down here, I have Frederic Laroche has now published his measurements of him measuring himself with the bug detector and finding the chips. And he also published the measurements of his mother, and he found chips in on the head of his mother as well. So if you're interested in the scanning device, you can go to stop007.org. This is my website. And here under Equipment and Detection, you will find this device here at the bottom. You've got all sorts of devices that you can use, but the bug detector for radio frequency, oops, sorry, to scan up. I wanted to scan down. This bug detector here for the measurement of radio frequency body chips, this is the one that has been used by Frederic Laroche and has been used by myself. So in addition to Frederic Laroche's case, you can also find 8 videos by me finding my own chips on my head. Now, the other thing that you should, you can have a look at is what Melanie mentioned. If you look at the 5th link down here, this is the strangulator that has that was implanted in Melanie Vritschan's throat and has been analyzed by me at the Paul Scherer Institute in Switzerland. This was a huge, huge chunk of a device. Here, the video jumps to 21 minutes in at the Techno Crime Fighters Forum 26. And when there's a brief description here in the very beginning, but then I lift my my hand and I show the actual implant. So this was it was totally black. It's made of iron, lumps of iron and titanium fibers with other things mixed in. And the dimensions of this thing, when it was taken out of the throat, it has been since squashed up a bit, but the dimensions were 3.5 centimeters by 1.5, and then again by 1.5 centimeters. So the device that you can see here has been cut in half, kind of like through the plane that you can see here, and it was much thicker when it was first taken out of Melanie's throat. And we should say, you know, that the second half of this is, I think, still in. I mean, this is what the entire hoo-ha is about, but this is an actual implant that has been removed, right? And we have the evidence of this foreign body. There's the description by Melanie. And here you can see the measurements, the actual experimental measurements that I've taken with a researcher at the Paul Scherer Institute. And what you can see here is X-ray fluorescence. So this is the red plot that determines the precise atomic admixture found in this implant. And what you can see here, this green line on this peak shows that it has a very high concentration of titanium. And the actual X-ray beam measuring is right here on this white field. So this is the microscopic view of the implant, and you can see these white lines going through at various places and these big white chunks, and it turns out the white is titanium. Now, titanium does not occur naturally in the human body, which means that this is the ultimate evidence that what has been removed from Melanie's throat is in fact an implant. It's an actual synthetic implant that has been put in. So you have seen this big black chunk. It has been analyzed at the Paul Scherer Institute. We do have the results from the Paul Scherer. This is what I've been showing you. I have been present at the measurements, so all this is known, you know. So there are all these cases. So, for example, Melanie has an active court case. I'm starting my own court case. I already had a court case in 2016. Frederic Laroche has a court case. And as we're speaking, more and more people are being implanted illegally by the secret services all around the world, but especially in the Western world. And this includes children. Okay, this includes children. This is something you have to know. Okay, Melanie, I've seen that you've just dropped out
again.
Yeah, but I think that the viewers probably didn't notice that you briefly were thrown out of the recording. Like you're back now.
Okay, I don't know if I still had time to post the actual link before I was thrown out, so I don't know if you got that.
I did not. Did you post it in the chat? Because I didn't
Yes.
see it.
So,
Can you
okay.
post it again? Because
Well, then I have to go. The thing is that I have to change to my Facebook page again, and I don't know, my computer can only take a limited amount of of sites that are open. So I will try. Yeah, hopefully I will not be thrown out again.
okay.
Let me see if I can copy it here.
Yeah, it would be really good if you've got the link, because if people can actually see it themselves as it was published on the History Channel, then we don't incur, you know, another copyright issue. And the reason why
Yeah.
I'm saying it is because my episode Global Crime Fighters #4 has been taken offline by YouTube, and still the copyright dispute hasn't been removed. So I'm working on having that restored, but it does take some time. So
Oh, you have seen it here now, but it's actually, I think, with the Facebook link. So I don't know if you can open that.
let me try. I will have a look. I'm trying to bring it up now. Just a second. Oh, hang on. Oops. Sorry. What you can hear is adverts in the background. I'm trying to mute the adverts, but it's impossible. Okay, just a second. I'm just checking. Ah, okay. Yeah, I
Does
see.
it open?
Yes, it has opened. Okay, so this, I mean, this to me looks like it is also posting by somebody else, not the History Channel. It's a Daily Motion page, but not by the History Channel, but at least it's not my problem. So,
yeah, and then as I've recently learned in my law exam, you could always argue that this was anyway material that was for public view. So you can always argue that this was not a copyright violation. You know?
absolutely. In any
So
case,
I don't think we're too legally liable here. So
and I think the other argument that certainly holds is that we are trying to fight and stop crimes against humanity, and a lot of things that would be unlawful otherwise become entirely not just lawful, but your bloody duty to do, because it's about stopping crimes against humanity. And I think, if anything, this qualifies. So one of the things I will do straight away is the link that you have sent me, which is a Daily Motion site. I'll post that in the chat straight away so that people benefit from it. I hope it allows me to post that. So it's now in the chat, and I will also edit the video so that it appears in the description below. That will take some moments. But if I can pass the microphone to you, I will edit the video description, and then people have the link for sure.
that's not a problem. I just wanted to, I hope it lets me copy it here now. I wanted to post the recent link to my law exam that I passed, and I think that I did this course because I think it will be to the benefit also of all ICATOR members. So I hope it comes through. Have you received it?
Just a second, Melanie, because I'm still busy trying to post the link.
Sorry.
So you have to
I wonder if you received this link.
Yeah, no, I haven't actually, not yet. The only thing I can see is the Facebook link, but
that's strange. Yeah, I just wanted to paste the actual link to my law exam, because I thought I did this course because I wanted to increase my knowledge to the benefit of all the ICATOR members. Let me see if I can copy it here.
okay. So in the meantime, what happened is that Melanie dropped out again. So I think this is what she was talking about. However, okay, she's coming back now. But what I have done in the meantime is I've also posted this link to the documentary, not just in the chat, in case you've got problems opening it from there. It should now appear in the description below the video. And I have so far heard very positive reviews. Here it is. I think I've just got the link from Melanie, maybe. But I have just received very, very positive reviews about from victims about this documentary on the History Channel called it's from a series called In Search Of.
Yes.
And this was you have seen it. I didn't have time to watch it yet, but you have seen it, and you say it's really it's not a hatchet job. It's actually genuinely good.
Yeah, it's really good, and I think it really can make citizens understand that I've never heard about mind control, have no ideas about these technologies, and that they actually exist and are applied against innocent victims all over the world, including children. I think it makes it quite understandable, even for people that have never heard about these technologies. So I thought it was good. A good start, at least for mainstream media to to expose this topic.
Excellent. In the meantime, I've also managed to bring up your law course certificate.
Yes.
So I just would like to show this to for the benefit. I hope people can read it. Otherwise, let me just zoom in on it a bit. So this is Melanie's certificate of achievement, law for non-lawyers, introduction to law, and so this is really finished, and it proves that you have really taken part in this course, and you now have a fundamental understanding of the of these things that were taught there. And then I think this is excellent, actually, a brilliant idea, and I encourage many victims to do the same, because as we said early on the show, no one is going to help us, and that also applies to lawyers. I mean, I've now followed many victim cases, and I can tell you that I've so far I have seen mostly two types of lawyers: those who are committing dereliction of duty by just refusing to assist victims, and those lawyers who actually actively they agree to assist victims and then actively sabotage cases. So there are some good lawyers, but they are extremely far and few between. I mean, for example, Edmund Schönberger is one of those lawyers who has been fighting tooth and claw for 40 years, but people like him are extremely rare. And unfortunately, I've seen really a lot of legal corruption, both from judges and especially from lawyers. And I have to say, if you have a little bit of basic understanding in law, then that helps a lot. And the course that Melanie has been taking part in, you can also do the same by you invest a few weeks and a couple of hours of every day into reading up about this stuff, and then when you understand the basics, you are that much less vulnerable to being screwed over by these frankly bastards, and you can
I think it's also upon us to actually increase our knowledge. And you will be also taken more seriously than by lawyers and judges if you can show this kind of diploma that you actually have a basic understanding of law and know something about the law. And this was about common law. And I also recently did and succeeded a course in psychology, introduction to psychology, from the same Australian university, Monash University, I think, who's one of the best in the world. So then when you were next confronted with an unknowing or ignorant psychiatrist or a psychologist who tells you that you do not understand because you have not studied psychiatry or psychology and you don't know how mentally ill you are, then you can at least, say, well, actually, I have a degree in diploma in psychology as well, and I'm not that ignorant as you might think, But just to add that this is not a psychological problem here. This is a technology problem, and let me explain you a little bit more about this, because there you are actually the one who's on the learning curve. And
absolutely. I should also say, regarding the technology point, one of the things that you can also emphasize both to police officers and especially to psychiatrists and doctors, is that they have no competency in telling you anything about implants, because implants are high tech. The measurements and the proof of implants are challenging if you are not from the field, if you're not from the military background and the medical weaponized medical technology background. then to actually find these implants and measure them is extremely challenging, as we have now seen at the Belgian university. It is challenging for a professor who is actually a professional in measuring electromagnetic emissions if you are new to this field. So if a victim has identified these implants by really just observing themselves, they have outdone, you know, the doctors, because they have more data to work with, because they have their own sensations. Now, a doctor who's only trained in medicine, typically they know very extremely shockingly little about physics and mathematics, and especially about engineering. And their word is literally worth nothing to determine does the patient have implants on or not, unless they actually do a scan and actively search for implants. This could be an MRI, this could be an X-ray. You can also try an ultrasound. Maybe that will show something, but do remember that implants can sometimes be hidden you know, in front of bones. So you do get an ultrasound echo from bones as well, but you also get one from the implant because it's a very solid little object, you know. And there are many things that doctors can do to find an implant, but unless they do this involved you know, attempt of actually finding it and actively checking for an implant, they do not have the professional competency to term anybody delusional or schizophrenic or whatever the hell these idiots dream up. So a doctor is more qualified than a psychiatrist in the medical field, much more qualified. But even a doctor is absolutely, totally incompetent. You know, most physicists and engineers are incompetent, but a doctor not knowing anything about those fields, forget it. You know?
Yeah, I would like to add that, you know, this technology is actually mainly nanotechnology, and you might not be able to detect this on an MRI or a CT scan, the usual detection methods that we have commonly available in our hospitals. So the only way to actually scientifically prove this is what we're doing. It's actually to do a full body scan and to scan the person in a controlled environment for radio frequency emissions. That's what we're doing now. I personally have all this proof already. I've been scanned various times in a Frederic cage in a controlled environment, outside a controlled environment, by private investigators, by engineers, and in a controlled environment as well in the Frederic cage. So I would like to put all our scientific data and our scientific evidence any day, hands down, against their psychological or psychiatric diagnosis and compare that hands down anytime. And then we will see what scientific basis actually their argumentation or their diagnosis has against the scientific proof that we have already established in my case and in many of our members. And we will go on with your help with this project and expose many more and help many more victims. So, but I will want to compare this anytime, hands down, their delusional diagnosis against the scientific evidence that we have.
Yeah, whereby I would say they're so-called diagnosis. They're so-called diagnosis because it's not even a diagnosis. A typical diagnosis has to be somehow founded in established medical knowledge, and this is just, most of the time, it's just waffle, frankly, expensive and devastating waffle. For those people who have recently just joined us, because I have an eye on the viewer numbers and they've just gone up, I would like to share my screen again and remind people, those who have listened to us and would like to support us, please go to ICATOR.be. If you're within Europe or the Eurozone, I recommend that you please donate using the bank details, do a direct bank transfer. If you are in the US or abroad, you can use GoFundMe, but do keep in mind that that will reduce what you donate by 5 to 10%. But there you can use this button, Donate Now, which takes you through to the actual GoFundMe page where you can click on Donate Now here. But please, please, please do support us. This is absolutely not just important what we're doing. It is extremely urgent because as we speak, these bio-implants are being used to torture people. And they are being used to torture men, women, and especially children. And children have absolutely no way to calibrate against, you know, another reality if they have been implanted at a very young age. And they are, and this is the intention, to bring them up with torture to bring them up, or continually connected to a supercomputer that interfaces with their body chips. And today, for example, my day started such that I was machine gunned to bits inside, but as soon as I leave the home, I am being tortured with the chips, not just inside the home, but also outside. There are cars driving by and accessing my body chips. Pedestrians are going by and using their mobile phones to access my body chips and torture me and rape me. And I have to say, I'm not speaking about myself to big myself up. No, I would like to use my example to speak for all those people who for various reasons cannot speak up, either because they are VIPs, because there are many more people than you would possibly ever guess in public life who have been implanted, and they, for their position, cannot talk about it for fear of their life and that of their families. But I tell you, the implantation is extremely vast spread, and the non-consensual, covert implanting of people. And I think one scientific article, it might be the one that even is linked on my website in the research library, is talking about an implantation level in the Western population of 30%. So every third person has been implanted without their knowledge, either in a hospital stay or in a hotel stay at night, or even in their private home. This is what we're talking about. So do take this seriously, and please, please support Melanie's human rights charity. It is really important what she does.
Okay, and thanks again for all our donors. We will certainly, after the calibration scanning, come back to you, do another show, inform you what has happened. We'll always keep you posted. Thank you again for your donations, for all your support. And my last word is again to William Binney, to the NSA whistleblower, well, to the many actually who support us, and to him in particular. We think of him and we thank him for all his support, and our thoughts are with him for the tragic events of the death of his wife. And we need more people like this that stand up and tell the truth, and that are coming actually from inside the intelligence agencies, and whistleblow and warn our population what is going on. So thank you very much.
Yes, I would like to absolutely echo that, because the price that some people have, paid for helping us and bringing to the public knowledge the vast crimes have been just horrendous. And I think he and his family have been hit extremely hard. So, for those who don't know, William Binney, the former technical director of the NSA, left the NSA in disgust together with his colleague, Kirk Wiebe. You can find both of them on YouTube with extremely good interviews. And they have published the mass surveillance of the population by the NSA, the absolutely unlawful, criminal mass surveillance of Americans. And they have been fighting all the criminal shenanigans that arose out of that mass surveillance. And I rather suspect that all this, because this is connected to signal and intelligence links, okay, so the entire SIGINT chain is entirely owned by NSA. And so if you support the two of them, you're also supporting the shutdown of these crimes. And, when these horrific tragedies happen, to people, private people and families who really don't deserve it, nobody deserves it, especially not them. What we have to do, all of us, is we have to stand up, and you should now start calling your senators, your congresspeople, if you're in the US. If you're not in the US, call them and ask them what the precise F is actually happening, right? That something like that is hitting families in the US who are the most upright and most patriotic, and these people should really get a Nobel Peace Prize for what they have done. And instead their families are being hit, And for this, metaphorical heads have to roll in the administration. That much is certain. So this is my final words. Thank you for listening. And, as Melanie says, we'll be back soon. We will not sit, on our hands, and we will fight them to the very end. Please support us. Please support Melanie, and we'll be reporting back soon.
Yeah.
For now.
Bye-bye.